Hello and welcome back to JLXP, episode 50. Not the first episode with MarkZ, actually. You were on the very
You kept
first.
the counting
I kept the
system?
counting from 2020 when I started the podcast, back when it was a Riot thing, and now it's no longer associated with Riot.
Is that legal?
Yeah. I got they were very nice, actually.
Okay.
They gave me the rights to JLXP. I just had to change the song because I didn't have rights to the song.
They're very nice because I stole GLT's entire, or PTL's entire graphics design look and called it PLT. And I heard that rubbed some people the wrong way, but they didn't sue me. They didn't sue me.
So what we're going to be doing here, we're hopefully going to be able to do this after every MSI group stage day. But like the plan I was talking with Mark is I want to be able to do this podcast during MSI. I want to be able to do quick reactionary content. The last time I did an international event was Worlds 2019, and I would do these like thoughtful Instagram posts. And someone told me that I should just make it a podcast because that's going to be more digestible. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do. We just had day one of MSI. How do you feel?
I feel good. As much as you can for an NA fan. Getting pretty slapped down, I'd say, for the matchup. And we'll talk about, I think, the games generally, if there's anything interesting. This is not going to be as long as your usual one, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, I was originally shooting for like 20 to 40 minute episodes. So if we don't have, that's the other thing, like if we don't have interesting things to say, it's going to be quick in and out, and we're going to go to the next day because MSI is a really long tournament. There's 2 different group stages before we get to the top 4 teams. And like already looking ahead, if we look all the way ahead, like rapid reaction, we just saw PSG get slammed. And normally that's the team that competes with NA to get out of groups.
That was the weirdest game of the day, I'd say. Most things went to chalk. There were some crazy moments in the early games, but teams always recovered.
Yeah.
I guess Istanbul getting crushed, the
by
Wildcats
RNG expected.
Yeah. So like I don't think there were any upsets except maybe this last one.
Yeah.
And it was also in some ways the most dominant because I think it was killless.
Deathless. Yeah, deathless, killless. And that was a huge thing. So Red Canids, if those of you who didn't watch the day, if you're just watching this podcast now, very, very fast games in day one of MSI. Going into game 6, it was about a 28-minute average game time, which normally would be ridiculously short for an international event. I think it's a little more expected at MSI when most of these matchups were like the world champion favorite, SKT, versus the number 2 seed from the VCS. So those are going to be a little bit more one-sided. But then, yeah, absolutely, that game at the end, I think that's what we can talk about first, because it was the upset of the day, was PSG just getting slammed by Red Canids. I really liked the Red Canids draft.
Yeah, the Jin Wukong kind of,
It was Gwen. They had double AP with Wukong Jin. It just gave them, so I'm sure you know this, but for some people that don't necessarily understand like double AP drafts, a lot of times like Gwen plus AP Soul Laner can be tough if you don't have enough physical damage. So when you have like an Umbral Glaive Lethality Jin, you make it difficult for the enemy to itemize against, but you still have a lot of playmaking. I just thought it was a really strong group of champions.
Yeah, there's been a couple. One of the Karthus drafts also had all physical damage around it, and then it's like, you can stack armor, but then you're going to get nuked for 500 health. So like those kinds of things feel good if you ever do end up with like double 80 solo lanes, but then your jungler is a high DPS jungler. And what's your swearing policy? I don't know what you're at.
I don't think I say F that much, but everything else I say. But if you want to say it, just go for it.
Okay, yeah. I'll keep that in mind in the future.
Podcast. Yeah.
I think PSG sucking was 1, surprising, and 2, disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
I was saying this, like, I don't mind PSG losing. Like, I'm not like, oh, I wish PSG made it, because I don't really care. But it was so boring, and they got slapped. And then, like, I was watching with the LCK guys in the green room, and Proxy was just talking about how, like, Bay was terrible in LCK, like, on the 10th place team.
Yeah.
Got replaced, and the team went on a run, Angjum, I think. And then, like, since then, it's like, oh, now he's winning the PCS. And it's just a weird feeling.
I will say that from the people I talked to, he wasn't good in the PCS either. Like, their mid jungle has been the weak point of their team. Remember, it was River and Maple. So great job, Dignitas, at making the PCS weaker. You're helping.
Yeah. Even if you didn't make it to international, you're making it better for NA.
For now. The biggest thing that I'm going to watch with PSG is that they play RNG tomorrow, and that gives them a high chance of a 0-2 start, when they were the favorite to advance from the group can really take a huge toll mentally going into day 3 when they're going to play against Istanbul Wildcats.
So these teams play.
Every team will play every day for the first 3 days, and then days 4, 5, 6, they'll play everyone in the group.
But it's double round robin or triple round robin?
So the 4-team groups are double round robin, and the 3-team group is quadruple round robin, because I don't like it. I don't need to defend the format. It was meant to have 12 teams. It only has 11, and they're like, we're putting the same number of games in.
Yeah. So for PSG, this is actually bad because you're going to lose to RNG pretty much. RNG is probably going to go 6-0 in their group.
Yep.
It does seem like Istanbul Wildcats are not going to be good. So
I think that's too early to say.
You think so?
Yeah. So what I liked is Grevthar from Red Cannons did an interview after their game on our broadcast, and he said he wasn't just like, oh man, we played so well, everything came together. He said PSG played like really poorly, like weirdly poorly. So I don't know if that's like the strength of the team. There's a chance they just had a big off day, and that Canids IW game could be a lot closer.
I mean, I'm hoping that's the case, because otherwise it's like one loss is a big deal when you're probably going to be close between. They're all going to take wins off each other, and no one's probably going to beat RNG. So like everyone's going to be around 2 and 4 most likely.
Yeah, it could be like a triple 2-4 if things get spicy.
Yeah. So that's why like losing one randomly can hurt a lot if you're in one of those like 2 and 4 situations. So nothing's set in stone yet. Them playing bad in their first game actually is funny, because every team that played their first game kind of didn't look great. Like SKT gave up a handful of kills before they ran away with that game.
Mm-hmm.
G2 gave up a bunch. Dude, have you realized that every time NA plays against G2, it's their first time on stage? And G2 had a warm-up game versus Order.
I mean, okay, are we going into the excuses now?
Because I
was ready for it.
Yeah.
This will become a dark place if things go really bad for NA, because like a lot of the times the EU fans just pile on. But like, listen, playing second was not an advantage for EG. It is definitely a disadvantage. When you're going to a new environment, getting the ability to be comfortable on stage is meaningful. And I experienced this in 2021 spring finals with TL, where we played TSM on Saturday, and it was an outdoor venue, and the sun had some weird angles
where
it was
weird
maybe reflecting
venue,
and it was windy. So like there were all these things that were just strange, and like we almost took down C9 because of it, because they were the winners final. They did end up beating us in 5 games, but like those first few games, Vulcan was like, yeah, like the wind was super weird. I didn't know how to deal with it.
Even just like momentum itself, like if you just beat Order, you're gonna feel better than the team coming in cold. And I think like momentum, as we've seen through the lower bracket runs, can matter. Comfort on the stage can matter. And so the only reason G2 beat NA today was that. And some cheese ass Anivia pick. All right, it's nothing to do with anything else.
Okay, let's. I made the joke on the post game show about JoJo being 5 when Anivia was released. We were trying to think of like clickbait titles for it's like, oh yeah, Caps brings out a grandpa champ against JoJo Finn. JoJo thought he was playing against Articuno. All these different things, but I was disappointed in EG.
What disappointed you in EG?
I felt like they had very low proactivity. And part of that is because of the Karthus. It was one of those games where at first glance, I saw like, okay, they have Samir Nautilus, they have Karthus jungle, and then it was Aatrox top lane, Ryze mid. And I thought, okay, these are generally champions that they should be pretty good at. Like Jodo got his Ryze. Yep. Impact looked good on Aatrox in finals weekend. And we know like from Danny Shiro days that he's like a good Samira. But then when Inspired just like full clear recalled, ulted for gold over and over again, they only had like one play where they actually got gold on a Danny. It was the weak side dive that they did bottom lane.
Yeah.
And then even though G2 didn't have like a traditional or a true front line, they just had a way better eye contact front to back fight the whole way. So like I'm still thinking about it. I don't think EG had the tools to take initiative, but it was like a very hopeless game. I mean, you were casting it. It felt unwinnable for like the last 20 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, we were supposed to like go in there and smack talk a lot, but it
Yeah.
very quickly became apparent that like G2 was gonna win, and then like it was like Vedius said like coping like, hey, you guys, it's closer maybe in the future.
And you were 2v1. It's a brave. It's a brave thing.
I wanted it to be fun, but it just wasn't.
Yeah.
So here's something that's nice about doing these live is Empire showed up and he said EG's draft coach is still in quarantine too. If we want to add another,
Wait, Turtle's still in quarantine?
I guess so.
Yep.
Or
So they didn't have the normal coaches on stage?
isn't it Rigby, or is it Rigby who's the draft coach?
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
When is he out? There's like a delay. We'll find out.
Yeah. We'll find out. But the thing that made me think about that was because the Anivia was shown relatively early, and their last phase was Aatrox and
Karthus,
right?
Yeah,
So they took the Aatrox, which is short range, into like what was going to be a comp where you're going to get kited out mostly.
Yeah, Graves and Anivia.
Yeah. I think on the point about the productivity thing, it was also sad because Targamas left lane so much in the early game to like go mid or like just
and
be
then
annoying.
Nautilus Samir still didn't get anything done.
They were even CS. They didn't make any plays happen, and like it's probably partially because it felt like Inspire was really important in the playoff run on picks that could make things happen. Even a Nocturne and like gank a little bit better, but like there was the one gank topside where he just like kind of flashed after the Gwen who just like walked away. It was like a sick wall, but it was like what's gonna happen here? So it just looked like the team wasn't necessarily comfortable playing with Inspired on like a champion that anything except flash on and press stuff, and they got picked apart. That's one of those games where like, did you get slaughtered? No, like skill wise, it didn't look like an issue in terms of like no one just got giga gapped in lane, but you get picked apart, and it was just pretty hopeless after the first couple kills.
Yeah, from a G2 perspective, because they played 2 games today, they did look a little sloppy. Broken Blade specifically just had a lot of isolated deaths, more than you would be comfortable with. It's going to happen occasionally to anyone, but I mean, he got solo killed by Biopanther, which was a misplay in the Aatrox versus Fedora matchup. And then he was also the victim of like the one time EG was able to make a proactive play and get gold onto Danny. So I think definitely an off day for Broken Blade, but to me, Caps did look good.
He continued the playoff run format. I mean, he did get solo killed the one time, and I was.
Oh yeah, he did.
I was so ready to bring that up in the game versus EG, but it just never felt like like it was never going to be relevant because he also solo killed.
He got
Kissy.
first blood in a solo kill.
Yeah,
Zoe versus Yone. He also got to play against Karthus jungle twice, so there's like very little gank pressure on him in either game.
Yeah, but he looked really good. He popped off both games. The Anivia as well was piloted well and was a smart pick, and like they played around it well in the early game. Like I didn't know if he was going to go double Q, double E, but he took W at 1 or at 3 to set up the gank.
Okay.
Because some Anivias just take the damage abilities and ignore wall. But they used that to get a flash, and then they repeat ganked him, and it was like, oh god, the Rise is just never going to roam because at 6, Anivia starts winning the lane.
Yeah. It ended up being actually a really good pick, and I also think it was one of those like genius picks because if they lose, they'll be like, ha ha, we picked Anivia. But if they win with a good pick, it actually
and the Pyke too. Like we just haven't seen Pyke in forever. It feels like, at least for North America. I don't know when it was last played in EU. Maybe
I mean, Hilly played in the playoffs, and then also it's one of like it was an EU Masters like big time pick.
It's just always been relevant in EU, even when no other region seems to be playing it. So like that was also a curveball. Like I know the last time EG played against. At least for EG, it's a curveball.
Correct.
So like, I don't think that if they haven't, their comp looked different than how they normally play. G2's comp was weird for them. So that's the copium for NA fans, is that was just a weird draft.
Stop me if you want to go in depth on any of the other stuff, but I'm going to kind of quickly recap it. Like T1 actually looked kind of sloppy, still smashed though, because they were able to get a 20-minute Baron. I don't know that much about Saigon Buffalo yet. Like them and Istanbul Wildcats playing against like the RNG T1 behemoths. I'm not going to make a judgment on their strength just because they lost to those teams. I'm still very interested in like the DFM Saigon battle that we're going to have in Group A to see who can make it out. And even like Team A's, who I actually thought played a closer game than it looked on the scoreboard against DFM, because I thought their comp could have turned on a little bit later. But I think more analysis is to come later when we see more of the teams that will be battling playing against each other. Yeah,
DFM is probably the only one worth mentioning because that is, well, I mean, maybe Group B has made it more interesting. I think coming in, people expected PSG to get out no matter what. This loss maybe throws it up in the air. And the other group that people were looking at was Group A. And is it DFM or Saigon. And
Yeah.
like you said, they played very different opponents.
Yeah.
And the TFM didn't look great, so
Correct.
maybe it's a little bit more Saigon favor, because I think a lot of people are hoping Japan gets out, but I don't think they're as strong as they were last year with Arya gone. And maybe Harp's better than Gang, but I don't know if it.
Yeah, there was a really interesting point. Harp said that he locked in Ornn by mistake.
Yes.
Which was actually shocking to me, because I thought Ornn was necessary glue for their team comp, like, because they had. I actually hated the fact that they played Graves Lucian into like Wukong and then eventually Victor, because if that gets into a late game team fight stage, like they can never approach. So the Ornn is like needed to be in front for them. I wonder what that. I actually really want to know what that pick was.
Well, and he said he
supposed to
misclicked, so like maybe it's like in Japanese lettering, like somehow another pick is closer to Ornn, but otherwise I'm like, what support are you taking that like you misclicked Ornn next to?
It's really weird.
Yeah, so I don't know what.
I want more to that story. We're never gonna get it.
Yeah, well, how good can they be if they came in locking the right champs? They're doomed.
The next thing I want to talk about is the meta that we saw on day one.
Okay.
Because for most regions, they skipped from patch 12.5 all the way to patch 12.8. So they didn't even get to do the 12.6 playoff patch that NA did, which was different than everyone else. What stood out to you?
Well, on that point, it's funny because like some of those things that were broken in 12.6, we didn't even play in playoffs. Like Rengar top with like the nuking turrets got nerfed in 12.7 because it was stupid in 12.6, and we didn't even like abuse that. So I don't think like the difference between the 12.6 and 12.5 team thing doesn't matter at all. The 80 carry meta feels like it's still up in the air a little bit. I'm seeing more Jins with lethality because Glaive is kind of strong right now.
Yeah,
I think that makes sense, but you have to be smart with it, and I think we're going to see a lot of Jins get picked without good teams set them up. Because you're talking about the Wukong Jin one being like smart, but I think you're also going to see a lot where it's like, it doesn't have anything to do now.
Yeah, they'll be like, we have Ornn, Jin, and it's like, well, you're doing a front-to-back teamfight comp with Jin. Like, Jin is the utility 80 carry in a sense that allows you to pick damage elsewhere and just have a really explosive team comp.
I think the thing that's interesting to me is top seem to have a lot of damage focus. Like, we saw Fiora versus Aatrox, Aatrox versus Gwen, multiple Gwen games, like everything. There's some Gnar that got played, but it didn't look very good. So I'm not sure Gnar will hang out in the meta for long.
Wukong, I think Wukong is probably here to stay.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah. He is also very good against. In team fights, he's good against Graves. In the jungle, he's not good against Graves because Graves can kite him out pretty hard.
Yeah.
But if I had to guess, we're going to see more Jin for sure, even though we only saw him like once today.
I think we saw him twice.
Because I just think he combos so well with skirmishy top laners, and like Bin, for instance, I think will work amazingly with the Jin on his team for RNG, which is going to come into play later. And I think that is bad for EG. I really like. I know Danny played a lot of Samira in the past, but just like funneling gold onto like, I don't know, Lucian, Nami, Jin, the things that aren't just going to be this, oh yeah, by the way, if you get to 3 or 4 items, you can just win the game. Like without Jinx and Aphelios being big, that strategy doesn't really work.
So I think Aphelios is fine. Maybe it was just the G2 game and that they were just going to outclass them anyways.
Yeah.
But
I mean, they played it twice, so Aphelios is still playable. Jinx seems far worse.
Jinx is pretty dead. I mean, what was it, like 50 base HP? It was like 610 to 560 or something. Yeah. And like, what people underrate base HP values being really broken and
hugely in pro.
There was a time where Kog'Maw was super strong, and what made him broken was that he just had the highest base HP of any marksman in the game. And you built Triforce first, and you would build Phage first. And this was back when Phage had a slow proc, and he had this range, and it was like this 1.2k HP level 6 Kog'Maw running at you, and it was like, well, I can't kill you.
No one can burst him.
Yeah. So like Jinx having that, like, I'm actually not that weak in lane, it makes it a lot worse. So she's dead. And I agree about the Danny point, because Jinx, Zeri, and Tristana are like his like big playmakers.
Maybe he can play Trist, actually. Trist would still work, and Trist seems good.
Trist seems good. I like the kill threat with the Trist alley lane. Like, it definitely felt like SKT forgot that, like, level 1, level 2 with Trist alley is actually their strongest power spike in lane phase. And, like, the thing that makes those champs good for Danny, I think, is that you can both run away very effectively and kite out, as well as go in when it's the right time. And Samira only goes in. She can't kite out. She doesn't have any range. And so, like, I think that even if he does have a clean Samira, in teams, it just doesn't play the same way like you're saying. So I'm concerned if he's just stuck on more traditional marksman.
It gives me a little bit comfort if they didn't have their whole coaching staff there.
Weirdly. Yeah, that's the copium.
That's the copium.
Yep, it was Rigby who wasn't there, he said.
Well, Rigby, he makes a difference. That's what
Funny enough, he was also in Visa Hell, I'm pretty sure, for the first half of spring.
Really?
Yeah, so
when they were all tweeting complaints about draft.
Yeah, I mean, he showed up and there were still those tweets coming out for a little bit, but yeah, he was also, I believe, having issues in spring getting to North America. So there you go.
All right, I'm gonna read tomorrow's schedule. Look ahead. First up, G2EG. Boom, right away. That's going to be 1 a.m. Pacific time. EG Order afterwards. So EG is the team that plays double tomorrow. That means Order will play double the next day.
Mm-hmm.
My phone bugged out a little bit. I think it says Dead FM plays next versus
Saigon
Buffalo. A's T1 after that. Then IW versus Red, which is actually like a really, really passionate rivalry for those two fan bases. And then RNG PSG to see if PSG was an anomaly or if they're just going to get ran over again. Obviously, like, we're going to have a G2 EG game all 3 days, and then we're going to have
every time
so many of them. We're not going to have an EG2 game all 3 days. We're going to have it these 2 days, and then we're going to have 2 more of them when they wrap up the group during day 5.
Okay, because they're day 5 day. They each play each other twice. Yeah. Okay. So EG, G2, I feel like will be the are we just screwed or what can we draft copium?
Correct.
Even if we don't necessarily win, we need to be winning the game for some point.
The big thing, actually, this is going to be a cynical take. They need to beat Order.
Well,
like, because the 0-3 start would be really bad. Like, the 0-3 start would actually look way worse than it actually is. Because I think NA has like a 90% all-time win rate against like OPL/PCS. But like the losses still happen. They lost a game to Pentanet in group stage, like Cloud9 did last year, in Rumble stage rather. So like that would be the disaster scenario, but it still wouldn't kill them. Like definitely don't overreact would be my advice.
I would say like NA is getting to group stage with almost 100% certainty. There's almost nothing that could happen that would make me be worried because you
have to be worried if they start at 0-3.
I still wouldn't be worried because the thing is you play Order 4 times, so they would legitimately need to beat you 3 of the 4 times to not get a tiebreaker. Or is there tiebreaker rules? I don't know.
So it would depend on if Order was also able to take games off of G2.
So I'm assuming that
you're just assuming they'll lose every game to G2.
Right. I'm assuming they're going to lose every game to G2. I'm saying if NA loses every game to G2 and starts dropping games to Order, they still would need to beat us 3 out of 4 times to not go to a tiebreaker. I'm pretty sure if I understand the tiebreaker rules. So the likelihood of us dropping a game to Order is not negligible. It could happen. It probably will happen. I would not be shocked. And if it happens in the first one, we go 0-3, I'm still like, it's so hard to knock it out of this group.
Yeah, I agree. I did a bottle flip for Order's chances to beat G2. It landed on the bottle 1 out of 4 times.
There you go.
I think that's likely for both of them. I think Order is actually going to come out of this group stage with 1 or 2 wins.
Yeah. I think that they're, based off what we saw out of the G2 EG game, Order, they play really aggressive stuff.
Yeah.
They are willing to take coin flips, and if enough of them land heads, you just fall behind and you lose.
Yeah.
Their Baron call was terrible. They were actually coming. They were playing this skirmish as well in that game.
The spirit of the Baron call, I understand though. They're like, if they don't check it, we'll be able to burst it in time. But they were way too committed to Baron.
They needed to turn or whatever because
they needed to have a plan. They didn't have a plan.
Yeah, no. So it's like, okay, but they were finding picks consistently in that game, and they were starting to pressure G2. So I do think one of these games will go right for them, and they won't just kill themselves at Baron like that if they get a lead.
Got anything else? Otherwise, wrap this rodeo up.
How you liking Berlin? Personal update. How are you doing? Because you flew in
I'm doing
yesterday.
Well. I think I can show this to the camera. This is an amazing graphic from my phone. So I track my sleep. I'm gonna see if this was my jet lag. So that's my normal sleep schedule, and then
there's just a day missing.
Then there was a flight, and then that was
this is a day missing.
Yeah, I'm good though. I'm very experienced with jet lag.
Yeah,
it's I need to say this in like an appropriate way because like substance abuse would be the wrong way of saying it because it's not.
But you're good
stuff.
at abusing substances.
But it's literally just like you need to make sure your sleep is timed. So what you do, if anyone, as long as you're okay taking melatonin, which I never take outside of travel, this is like it works so well for me. So basically, when you're on the plane, you take melatonin when you want to go to sleep in your new location.
Yeah.
So basically, when it was like midnight in Berlin, I took melatonin on the plane, and then you sleep as long as you can. I only ended up getting like 3 or 4 hours of sleep on the plane, but it still kind of sets you. Then you make sure you caffeinate the next day so you can get through to a normal sleep time, and then you melatonin again on your sleep time. And every time I've done that, I've gotten like a sound night's sleep. So I got like 7 solid hours last night. When I get home at like 9 p.m., melatonin one more time, sleep again, and you're set.
I like Twitch chat calling it jet lag instead of jet lag. My strategy for is just stay up as long as I humanly can until I need to sleep at the right time.
Oh, dude.
So you know how you had
I hate that. It's so bad for your immune system, I think.
Is it?
Probably.
I don't know. But you, like that graph that you have, that's me intentionally. Like I just don't want to sleep. I just want to stay up all the way through. And that's what I did. And I went to bed at like midnight and I slept until 9. And then like, here I am. I'm used to it.
Yeah, it didn't register my my sleep on the plane because I had like Bluetooth.
Funnily
Bluetooth
enough,
off and everything.
East Coast to West Coast is more likely to fuck me up
because you're not prepared for it. And
it's 3 hours, and like, how do you do that? Whereas if I just stay up for 20 hours because I'm traveling for 15 anyways.
Yeah, I read somewhere it takes roughly a day per hour of time zone adjustment to fully be in a new time.
Sounds like crock of shit.
So if we're like 8 hours away,
that sounds like BS.
In 8 days, I'll be set, and then I can go back to LA and do it again. Yeah,
maybe.
Okay, that's it.
Yep.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us on episode 50 MSI Day 1 reaction. And we're going to try to do this tomorrow as well. So
so everyone tune back in at Twitch chat, twitch.tv/TheMarkZ. We're doing
That's
these live.
That's the live broadcast. And then the JLXP YouTube for the VOD.
Yeah, actually plugging things. All right.